There's a fight happening right now in the automotive industry. It's happening in Washington, it's happening in state legislatures, it's happening in boardrooms, trade associations, between insurance companies and automakers. Most people know it as the right to repair, but I think that's a misleading name because the name causes consumers to believe the discussion is focusing on repairing vehicles. And the deeper you look into this issue, the more you may realize that this fight has far less to do with repairing vehicles than most people think. Instead, it has to do with information. Information about you. Information collected by your vehicle. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Airing of Grievances. My name is Eric Raymer, and before we go any further, let's start with what may be the most important question in this entire conversation. If you own the vehicle, do you own the data that it collects about you? Think about that. If you buy a vehicle, make the payments, insure it, fuel it, maintain it, and drive it every day, should you also own the information that it collects about you? Or does somebody else own that information? And if somebody else wants access to that information, who should it be? Those are questions that not enough people are asking. One of the bills at the center of this discussion is called the Federal Repair Act. Supporters say the bill is about consumer choice and access to OEM repair procedures. Opponents raise concerns about privacy, cybersecurity, and vehicle data. But before we even get into the legislation, let's establish something really important. Everybody already has access to repair procedures. Independent repair facilities purchase OEM repair information every single day. Automakers provide repair procedures. They provide service information. They provide calibration information. Professional rippers use these resources every day. So if repair information already exists, what exactly is everybody really fighting over? That's where this conversation gets interesting. Because today's debate increasingly centers around vehicle-generated information, and modern vehicles collect a lot of information. Vehicle health, diagnostic information, system performance, maintenance information, location information, and get this, driving behavior information. In some cases, even information related to driver attention. Think about this, Cadillac's Super Cruise system monitors eye and head position. Ford's Blue Cruise system does something very similar. Subaru's driver focus system monitors on driver attention and distraction. Now, 10 years ago, that would have sounded futuristic. Today, it's already on the road. So let's ask the obvious question. Why does everyone want access to that information? Let's start with insurance companies. Insurance companies have spent years encouraging drivers to install driving analysis dongles or download their smartphone apps. Their pitch is simple. Drive safely, and you may qualify for discounts. It sounds fair enough. Insurance companies are in the business of evaluating risk. The more accurately they can understand risk, the more accurately they can price their insurance. That's their business model. But if a company is willing to give you a discount in exchange for access to driving information, then one thing becomes obvious. That information has value. The question is, how much value? And what else could it potentially be used for? Again, let's be clear, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I am simply asking questions that consumers should be asking. If driving data can be used to justify discounts, could it also influence other underwriting decisions? Could it influence how risk is evaluated? Could it be used to increase your rates? Could it be used to cancel your policy? Could it be used to influence future policy offerings? Those are fair questions because the entire purpose of collecting the information is to better understand the driver. And if the information wasn't valuable, nobody would be spending millions to collect it. Now let's jump to the aftermarket side. Organizations like the Auto Care Association and the Car Coalition argue that consumers should have greater access to vehicle-generated information and should be free to choose who gets to access it. Their public position is consumer choice, competition, repair access. Only consumers already have choice. Competition already exists. And as I mentioned earlier, everybody already has the same access to those repair procedures. They just don't want to pay for it. The dealership has to pay for it. It's in their contract. The OEM certified body shops have to pay for it. It's in their contracts as well. So why do we think these associations, lobbying on behalf of their aftermarket part members and aftermarket retail members, don't want to pay for it? Could it be because a penny saved is a penny earned? Their members include parts suppliers, tool manufacturers, service providers, insurance partner repair organizations, businesses. And businesses generally pursue opportunities that can help them grow their bottom line. That's not a criticism, that's reality. Follow the money. So consumers should ask another reasonable question. If access to vehicle-generated information expands, what new opportunities does that create? Would it create new repair opportunities, new maintenance opportunities, parts opportunities? How about new service opportunities? Could companies use that information to identify vehicles that need service? Could they identify vehicles that are due for maintenance? Could they identify consumers who may become customers? Again, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I am saying consumers should understand why access creates value. Now let's talk about the automakers. Automakers are often portrayed as the villains in this discussion, and I don't think the situation is that simple. Do automakers benefit when customers stay within their ecosystems? Of course they do. Do automakers benefit from dealer service revenue? Certainly. But there's another side to the story. Automakers are also responsible for cybersecurity. They're responsible for connected vehicle systems. They're responsible for protecting consumer information. And they're responsible when something goes wrong. Consumers should ask another question. If vehicle-generated information becomes more widely available, what safeguards exist to protect that information? Because once information leaves the system and enters another, accountability becomes very complicated. Now let's talk about one of the most interesting examples in this entire discussion, General Motors. In 2025, the Federal Trade Commission took action against GM and OnStar over allegations involving the collection and sharing of driver location and driving behavior data. Then, in 2026, GM agreed to a $12.75 million settlement with the state of California over related privacy allegations. Whether you agree with the government's position or GM's response, one thing became very clear. Vehicle data has value, and a lot of people want access to it. I'll say it again. Your driving data has value. If it didn't, no one would be collecting it. No one would be sharing it. Nobody would be fighting over it. Nobody would be lobbying Congress over it. Your data matters because it's valuable. Now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Everybody in this debate says they're protecting consumers. The aftermarket says that it's protecting consumers, but they only imitate OEM parts. Automakers say that they're protecting consumers and they pay for all the research, development, and have all the documentation to back it up. Insurance companies say they're protecting consumers, but they regularly cut corners on repairs and raise rates, sometimes even cancel people's policies. Government officials say they're protecting consumers, but when was the last time the government actually solved a problem without creating 10 more? And maybe they're all telling the truth. Maybe each group believes in its position. Maybe each group genuinely believes its position benefits consumers. But every one of those groups also benefits from the outcome that they're advocating for. And that's why consumers should pay attention. Because the only people without a full-time lobbying team in Washington are the people who actually own the vehicles. That's you. Now, let's talk a little more about the government. Government agencies often focus on safety, traffic management, transportation planning, infrastructure, crash analysis. Those are legitimate public interests. Congress has already directed the NHTSA to pursue standards related to advanced impaired driving prevention technology. The stated goal is safety, reducing crashes, saving lives. Most people would support those goals, but consumers still ask questions. How much of their personal information is being collected? Who has access to it? How long is it stored? What protections exist? What oversight exists? Because history teaches us something important. Whenever information exists, somebody eventually wants access to it. And what about law enforcement? Law enforcement agencies already use vehicle-generated information in certain investigations under appropriate legal processes. That's not new. The question is, what happens as vehicles become more connected and collect more information? What should the rules be? What level of access is appropriate? What level of access is inappropriate? Where should the line be drawn? Those aren't anti-law enforcement questions. Those are consumer questions, because privacy and access often exist in tension with each other. Now, let's bring this back to something every consumer can understand. Imagine your vehicle knows that you need an oil change. Imagine that information becomes available to a third party. Would it be acceptable for a company to send you a reminder? Most people would probably say yes. Would it be acceptable for a company to send you a coupon? Again, many people would probably say yes. Would it be acceptable for that coupon to appear the moment you drive past one of their stores? Maybe. Maybe not. Now keep extending that thought process. What else could someone infer from vehicle-generated information? How about how often you drive, how far you drive, where you drive, how aggressively you drive, what services your vehicle needs, what repairs your vehicle may need. Again, these are questions, not accusations, just questions. And consumers deserve answers. Because once information leaves your control, it becomes very difficult to know who has it, who shares it, who stores it, and how it may be used in the future. That's why I believe this conversation matters. Not because Congress is debating a bill, not because trade groups are fighting over access, not because insurers, automakers, aftermarket companies are all arguing with one another. This matters because every organization involved in this debate wants access to information collected about you, your vehicle, and your driving habits. The question isn't whether the information has value. We all agree it does. The question is, who should control it? Should it be the automaker, the vehicle owner, insurers, the government agencies? Should it be a combination of those groups? Responsible people can disagree. But before any of those decisions are made, consumers deserve something else that's been missing from much of this discussion: transparency. Consumers deserve to know what information is being collected about them. They deserve to know who wants to access it. They need to know why they want access to it. Consumers need to know how it may be used, and consumers deserve to know what protections exist if that information ends up somewhere it was never intended to go. Because this really isn't a story about repairing vehicles. It's a story about ownership. It's a story about privacy. It's a story about control. And it's a story that is only going to become more important as vehicles continue collecting more information every year. If you own the vehicle, do you own the data it collects? That's the question. And before somebody else answers it for you, you may want to spend a little time thinking about your own answer. My name is Eric Raymer. Thanks for joining me here on the Airing of Grievances. I hope you have a great Saturday morning, and we'll see you again next week.